Alright, if crafting your very own legendary weapon always seemed out of reach, I have some great news for you. ArenaNet is trying to help with the legendary starter kits, which can be purchased for Astral Acclaim. And I want to help you not by sending you gold or materials, but by giving you a plan to follow on how to come up with the rest yourself. If you're wondering what is so special about legendary weapons or why they cost as much as they do, it all boils down to convenience and looks. If you're into fashion wars, these weapons will grant you unique footfalls, an aura, and can be even transmuted without spending any charges. If convenience is important to you, well, these items will always have the best stats possible, and you can change them with the click of a button. Thanks to the legendary armory, you'll also be able to use a single legendary weapon in all of your build templates on all of your characters. Before diving into the different components, let's first see what ArenaNet is providing you with. You'll be able to buy a starter kit for 1000 Astral Acclaim, which you can acquire by doing dailies, weeklies, and if you own Secrets of the Obscure, by doing special tasks. These kits will let you choose components for one of 4 legendaries. You have Quip, a legendary pistol, Meteorlogicus, a scepter, the Bifrost, a staff, or Bolt, which is a sword. You can postpone this choice until you have almost all materials ready, but it's worth going over some points you might already want to consider. If your goal is to sell the legendary weapon for gold, you'll be best served with one that can fetch you the highest price. But if you want to use the weapon yourself, there are a few other things to consider. You can either choose to craft a weapon that you will be wielding the most and enjoy seeing it in action, or you can choose to make the one that will provide you personally with the most value. Not all classes or builds can make use of every weapon. Currently, pistols and scepters can be wielded by 5 classes, whilst staves by all except for warriors and engineers, and swords by all except necromancer. When the second update goes live, guardians and elementalists will also be able to wield pistols, revenants will get access to scepters, warriors to staves, and necromancers to swords. So if efficiency is of concern, you could choose to craft the one that you will get to use on the most amount of builds or characters. With that out of the way, let's get to the actual crafting. Each starter kit will provide you with 3 things: a precursor, a gift of the weapon of your choice, and a gift of might or magic, with the latter being random. Every legendary has 4 final components that you will need to throw into the Mystic Forge. A gift of mastery, which requires mostly account-bound materials, a gift of fortune, which is a material sink, a gift of the weapon, and a precursor. You won't need to worry about the last 2, as both of them are included in the starter kits. This leaves us with a gift of mastery and part of the gift of fortune, which you can obtain by throwing 4 more components into the Mystic Forge. Let's start with mastery. You will most likely not need to worry about the bloodstone shards or obsidian shards. The other components will most likely take care of these 2 items. A bloodstone shard can be bought from the Mystic Forge attendant for 200 spirit shards. You can obtain spirit shards by simply leveling up past level 80, as every 254,000 XP will reward you with 1 spirit shard. As for the obsidian shards, these can be bought from multiple sources, but my recommendation would be the vendor in Cathedral of Glorious Victory in Straits of Devastation, as they only ask for karma. The other 2 components will require some work. For the gift of exploration, you will need to completely explore all of Corteria maps. If you've never done this before, this might seem like a daunting prospect, but it doesn't need to be. There is an add-on called Blishut, which has a pathing module that can draw routes to follow on your screen, and one of these routes is called Test Trails. It's made by a user who speedruns map completions, and his current world record is 6 hours and 48 minutes. And I'm not saying you will be anywhere close to this time, but by following his routes, a week of casual gaming most likely will get you where you need to be. As for the gift of battle, you will either love or hate acquiring it, as this can only come from World v World reward tracks. If you've never set foot in there, don't worry. You don't need to win games or fights, instead, all you need to do is actively participate in the map. Before going in, open up the World v World menu and make sure you enable the correct reward track. Nothing will be as deflating as playing for hours and realizing you've been working towards the wrong rewards. As for the gameplay, you can either follow a commander around during prime time, who will most likely be directing a group of players to take down castles, keeps and other objectives, or you can go at it solo, kill some Dolyaks or claim some checkpoints and camps. Once you obtain all 4 of these components, throw them into the forge and you have 3 out of the 4 gifts you need for your first legendary. The second gift you will need to craft is the Gift of Fortune, and as its name implies, this can be a costly one. Your starter kit will either contain a Gift of Magic or a Gift of Might, which will significantly reduce your overall cost. I'll discuss how to get the other gift at the end, as the other two components will partly help pay for this as well. Let's start with Globs of Ectoplasm. You'll need a stack, which costs a lot, but if you do some farming, you can actually get this for free. You want to be amassing large amounts of unidentified gear and salvage them with the correct tools. Before salvaging, always make sure you identify the gear first. You have a chance to get a piece of higher tier gear if you identify them, so it's always worth doing. Next, you'll want to salvage common or blue gear with a copper-fed salvage-o-matic or a basic salvage kit. Green gear will be a bit of an iffy one. If you have a Runecrafter salvage-o-matic, you want to use that one. If not, you need to decide whether you want to salvage with the same kit as blue gear, or you can choose to not salvage at all and sell on the trading post. Technically, selling on the trading post will be the most profitable, but it involves extra work. I personally would say to go ahead and salvage and get the extra materials. Finally, you'll want to salvage yellow or rare gear with a silver-fed salvage-o-matic or with a mystic or master salvage kit. Every piece of blue gear that you salvage will have a 0.8% chance of yielding an ectoplasm. Green gear has a 2.5% chance, and yellow gear has a whopping 75% chance to give you ectoplasms. There are of course a few things you can do to get stacks and stacks of unidentified gear. Completing meta events is a great way, especially if you want to experience some of the world bosses and see other players in action. I'll leave a link to an event timer page in the pinned comment so that you can track when the events are about to happen. If you prefer going at it solo, I would highly recommend farming the Bifrost Frontier. I previously made a guide on this specific farm, which I'll leave in the pinned comment as well. This brings me to Mystic Clovers, which will be the scariest to get the first time around. If you've watched my casual legendary armor guide, you'll be familiar with the methods, but I want to elaborate on them if you want to go for both the weapon and the armor. First of all, you can buy 20 Clovers with Astral Acclaim, which won't cost you a thing. If you're saving up for the legendary armor as well, you will for sure want to buy these, but maybe you think of hanging on to some of them. Another way to obtain Clovers is through various vendors which all require globs of ectoplasm, mystic coins, spirit shards, and one of many currencies from raids, strikes, World v World, or PvP. And then there is a third way, gambling for Clovers in the Mystic Forge. Before you say no to this method, please hear me out. When you purchase Clovers from a vendor, you will always be spending 2 or 3 of the aforementioned items. You can gamble for a Clover in the forge for about half or 1/3 of the cost, and you have about a 31% chance to get a Clover in return. Despite seeming worse, I would highly recommend this route though. See, every failed attempt at a Clover in the forge will still reward you with other items. A lot of them will be used for the Gift of Might or Magic, so either you get a Clover or there is a chance you can progress towards one of your other gifts. And if you get materials for the wrong gift, or leather or ores, you can simply sell those on the trading post for some extra gold. If you want to gamble for all 77 Clovers in the forge, you will need about 231 mystic coins and the same amounts of globs of ectoplasm and obsidian shards, as well as around 140 spirit shards. I say about because you can get lucky and need less, or unlucky and require some more. We already covered on how to come up with the globs of ectoplasm and obsidian shards. Mystic coins will either cost you gold on the trading post, or you can buy a limit of 10 per week from the strike vendor for green profit shards. With the introduction of the Wizard's Vault, you can also buy 60 total for 9 Astral Acclaim each. So for the Mystic coins, you will most likely need to do some farming and spend some Astral Acclaim. If you've gambled for your Clovers in the forge, chances are you already have obtained quite a few of the remaining materials for your Gift of Might or Magic. If you don't want to outright buy the rest of the materials from the trading post, I would recommend spending some time in Living World Season 3 and 4 maps. You can get Unbound Magic from Living World Season 3 maps, of which Bifrost Frontier is one by the way, and Volatile Magic from Living World Season 4 maps. You will want to spend the Unbound Magic on Mystic Ward bundles from the vendor in Ember Bay, as these will reward you with many of the materials, as well as have a rare chance at rewarding you with a Mystic Clover. Make sure to only use the specific vendor in Ember Bay and specifically buy the Magic Warp bundle. All the other options will yield you much less value. As for the volatile magic, you want to spend it on trophy shipments from any of the vendors in the Season 4 maps or the vendor in Eye of the North. Simply sell the excess of the items you don't need from these bundles on the trading post and you'll have enough gold to keep funding more. There is one more way you will want to know about as well, which will cost you some spirit shards. With all of the farming I suggested above, you'll most likely have a lot of the lower tier materials as well. You could sell these for gold, but you can also use the tier 5 materials and make them into tier 6 materials for one of the gifts. Currently, you would come out on top if you upgrade any of the materials except for Vicious Fangs and piles of crystalline dust in the forge. Each upgrade will require one of the tier 6 item, 50 of the tier 5 items, 5 crystalline dust and 5 philosopher's stones, which can be bought for spirit shards from the Mystic Forge attendant. So if you have more spirit shards than you actually need, this will significantly lower the cost of this whole project as well. If you're short on crystalline dust, you can also salvage globs of ectoplasm with a Silverfed salvage-o-matic or its equivalent salvaging kits. Going over all of this, it might be easy to have lost track of what I mentioned in the beginning of the video. So let's summarize and introduce one final tool. There's a website called GW2 Efficiency, which has a crafting calculator that you can use for a full list of the materials. If you make an account with them and register your API key, they can even determine which items you're missing based on what is in your bank or in your character's inventory. As for the summary, for the Gift of Mastery, simply focus on world completion and spending time in World v World. If you don't want to burn out on the game, make sure you divide your time between different activities, as there is no need to do anything in one single session. The Bloodstone Shard and Obsidian Shards will take care of themselves along the way. For the Gift of Fortune, we have some farming to do. Focus on acquiring as much unidentified gear as possible by either farming solo, closing rifts in the new expansion, doing meta events, and possibly spending time in Living World Seasons 3 and 4. Before you purchase the materials for the Gift of Might or Magic, focus on acquiring Clovers first. If you use the Mystic Forge method, a lot of the failed attempts will progress you towards either gift anyway. And that's it, the whole guide in 2 paragraphs. If you have any comments or questions, make sure to leave them down below and don't forget to like and subscribe.